All right, folks. Okay, so interesting things happening nowadays, especially here in the United States, and I want to bring it to your attention. And so it appears that a lot of elites are leaving the United States in droves, and this has been going on for years now. And you wouldn't know it if you look at what's going on in the news. You know, when you see the migrant situation in the news, what most people think, or the perception you think, is that people are flooding the United States and want to come up here, and that is true, and that's not. There's nothing wrong with that, and there's nothing false about that story. But what people are not realizing is that underneath all of that is that the elite, the rich, the job creators here in the United States are leaving the country, and the reasons for this will really shock you. And so while everyone else is being distracted by the migrant situation, they are leaving the country because of the migrant situation and many other reasons. I want you to take a look at some of these clips right here, and we'll discuss this. And I have a couple of articles that I want to share with you guys. And this is really eye-opening. And I want you also to take a look. I'm going to share in this video where a ex-CIA operative said that he is planning on leaving the country by 2027. You know, so that's an eye opener. When an ex-CIA operative officer says something like that, he knows something that the rest of us don't know, and he's planning on leaving with his family by 2027. So anyway, take a look at these clips, and we'll have a good conversation today.
Something unusual is happening inside the United States. More American citizens are now permanently leaving. And according to a new groundbreaking study, more than half of Gen Z want to move out of the United States for this sad reason. But why are Americans leaving the US? Isn't the United States the land of freedom and opportunity? Why is it that even CNN is reporting the American dream is to leave America?
Americans are leaving the United States en masse. 2022, more Americans left the United States than in the prior 5 years combined. Adults over the age of 45 represent the largest portion of those fed up with the United States and moving elsewhere. Many blame the rising costs of living, taxes, as well as politics. One retiree commented, "I think that people are beginning to wonder if the United States is as great a place as they always thought it was."
3 reasons why I'm leaving the US. Number 1 is going to be cost of living. Now I'm going to the Philippines, but you could go to any other Southeast Asian country. Even places in Europe are going to be significantly lower with cost of living. So specifically for the Philippines, the average cost of living for an individual is 72.4% lower than in the US. And this isn't just some bullshit stat. I've been to the Philippines a bunch of times and it's definitely true. Number 2 is going to be corruption. Now, I'm not going to come up on here and pretend like the Philippines is not corrupt whatsoever, but the US government 100% is. And every time they do some shit like this without the American people's approval, that's enough info for me to get the fuck out.
So everybody wondering why Bill Gates bought up all this farmland, all these acres of farmland. Well, let me tell you why. Because when the shit pop off, guess where everybody going? To Bill Gates, his underground city that he probably done had built up under that farmland. But ain't nobody thinking about that.
Recently, a bunch of super rich folks have been selling a ton of their shares in different companies, including big names in tech, banking, and stuff we use every day. For example, Mark Zuckerberg, the guy behind Facebook, now called Meta, sold shares worth $4.5 billion this year. That's a lot more than he usually sells. And it's not just him. Other big shots like Sergey Brin and Larry Page, the Google founders, Jeff Bezos of Amazon, and Michael Dell are also selling shares worth billions. Elon Musk, the Tesla guy, has sold $12.7 billion in Tesla shares, and it's the first time he's sold any in 5 years. Then there's George Soros, who almost got rid of all his shares in big banks like JP Morgan Chase, Citigroup, and Goldman Sachs, selling more than 1 million shares.
All right, so that's scary stuff. So according to some of these articles right here, The Atlantic says that America is headed towards collapse. That is crazy. That America is headed towards collapse. This is according to The Atlantic. You know, CNN Travel says that the American dream now is to leave America. Wow. That is what they're saying the American dream is now. It is now to leave America. And that is certainly what we're seeing now with a lot of people who are secretly leaving the country, especially these are rich folks. And according to Axios, the American dream is leaving the US. So why are people leaving the United States in such a huge number? And in addition to the elites leaving, and I'm going to tell you why they're leaving, because the empire is falling. The United States, as we all know it, is really falling. The empire is falling. And it will also shock you that the rich aren't the only one that are leaving the country. I'm going to give you an idea. I'm going to tell you why they're leaving. And I think it has a lot to do with the fact that the Gen Zs have been flooding out of this country. And there might be some correlations to that. Gen Zs no longer want to live in the United States. Many of them are leaving and moving out. Europe is the preferred destination. Many are going to Amsterdam. Many are going to other places like France. The rich, in particularly, are going to places like Mexico, and they're leaving the country. Now, the Gen Zs, the reasons for their leaving has a lot to do with the cost of living. The cost of living in the United States has skyrocketed, especially after COVID. People can't afford anything anymore. Inflation is at an all-time high. People can't afford anything anymore. It is really, really bad. You can't afford homes. Homes are not attainable anymore. With mortgage rate, 30-year fixed mortgage rate at 7%. Really? Who can afford a home? 7%. An average home now in the United States costs $350,000. So you have to come out of the pocket, $20,000 to a down payment and have a monthly payment of $3,000 just to afford a $350,000 home. People don't have that kind of money anymore. Credit cards, people have maxed out credit cards. And renting in the United States also is at an all-time high because a lot of people can't afford homes anymore because of the high interest rate that's made it very, very hard for you to own homes nowadays. And so a lot of people resort to renting, and the rental market understands what's going on, so they're jacking up their rates. They're jacking up their rates. We're seeing a lot of rate hikes in Austin. Of course, California is ridiculous. New York. But Austin is seeing a huge rate hike. Houston is starting to see a huge rate hike in terms of rental. Other parts of Texas, San Antonio is starting to see that. So people are stressed out. And so if you can't afford the American dream, which for a large part in this country had a lot to do with owning a home, buying, getting married, having a wife and a dog, and owning a home. That is the American dream, and that is unattainable now. So the new American dream now is people leaving the country. According to TriList, Gen Z doesn't just want to travel abroad; they want to move there. And that is scary, because if the younger workforce isn't trying to stay in the country, these are the young, vibrant men and women who a lot of industries rely on. If they don't want to stay in the country and they're moving out, and the reasons for Gen Z, I have to tell you, my heart go out to Gen Zs, because a lot of them met and were met with a lot of the unfortunate situation that this country has now presented. And so they don't want to be there. Many reasons for Gen Zs is high cost of living, which is one of them. That's the number one reason. Another reason is, the cultural shift in the United States. Many feel like the country isn't safe anymore. A lot of shootings and mass shootings that go on that you can't almost tell when it's going to happen nowadays. It's happening in schools. It's happening in the mall. It's happening in the movie theater. So this is a lot of scary stuff for people who just want to live their lives and just live a normal life. So you have the cost of living, you have social uncertainty, and then the level of hate and that this country was founded on. Gen Zs are not with that. They don't want to be part of that whole, cultural, animosity and racism that a lot of their fathers and grandfathers really sort of like practice a lot of that. They don't want to be part of that. And so if you're a Gen Z and you're seeing society really shift the way it is, and on top of the fact that you can't afford anything anymore, you gotta see why it makes sense for them to just want to bolt. They don't want to be here anymore. And I don't blame them. I don't blame him. And so could this be the reason why a lot of millionaires, rich folks, are also deciding to leave? Because if the younger workforce is deciding that they don't want to be here, then the guys that are creating jobs are not going to see the return on their money anymore. Is that a correlation here? Right? I don't know. But some articles and some suggest that the reason why a lot of the elites are leaving has largely to do with the fact that the inflation and the country's trajectory, where the country is going, they've seen the handwriting on the wall that it's going to get worse. They've seen the handwriting. These are job creators. These are millionaires. They've seen the handwriting on the wall. They're seeing a slow GDP growth that isn't looking like it's going to get better anytime soon. They're seeing that other countries like China and Russia are a huge threat to the United States. And they're seeing social norms that they created, by the way. These guys were the ones that puppet stringed a lot of the stuff that society has had to endure, a lot of the issues that we've had to face. These were the ones that spearheaded the whole thing. And now that society has fallen the way it is, many of them are like, oh, they jump in ship and they're leaving, because if the younger workforce is leaving and they don't want to be here, who is going to work the fields? Who is going to, who wants to be employed? So companies are shutting down because everyone's working from home. Everyone's working online. People are paving their way through internet and a lot of their own, becoming their own bosses. So a lot of these people are not seeing a huge return on their money, on top of the fact that there's a huge inflation going on. The feds have not been able to curb this whole thing. And so what is it? If you're a rich person who has a lot of money, right? What are you thinking? If society is collapsing and society gets to a place, which I think a lot of people are thinking that's where it's going, which is why I want you to take a look at this clip from this ex-CIA operative. And I want you to hear what he had to say. But if you're a rich person and you're seeing society collapse, and you know that you're one of the few elites, and things are heading towards downward spiral, people can't afford things anymore. People are frustrated. Families can't survive anymore. And you're seeing total collapse. What do you think is going on in the mind of people? They're thinking that it's going to get to Armageddon, and they might be the targets of everyone's anger. I don't know. That could be a possibility. So maybe these ones are jumping ship and running out of the country quickly before it gets to that situation. I hope we don't get to that point. I really hope that we don't get there as a society, because that is scary. But that to me is something that is worth looking into, because these are two important demographics in the country: your young force and your job creators. If these two are leaving the country, then something is up. Anyway, take a look at this ex-CIA operative. I want you to hear what he has to say. Because if an ex-CIA operative is saying that he wants to leave the country by 2027, he's worth paying attention to. Take a look at this.
Are you going to leave America in 2030?
I'm going to try and leave America in 2027.
I read that somewhere. Why are you going to try and leave America in 2027?
So I think the United States is going through a very difficult time right now. And I think most people understand that. We are a young country. No matter how much we think that we are the best in the world, we are actually going through the early part of our adolescence as a nation. And you can see it playing out every day in the headlines. You can see it in our role in geopolitical events. You can see that we are we're suffering in terms of trying to identify ourselves. We don't know, do we want to be a real democracy? Do we want to be kind of a partial democracy? Do we want to treat everybody as equal? Do we not want to treat everybody as equal? We're struggling in the same way that you and I did through middle school, right? My children mean the world to me. And what I want to do is give them a life where they have the choice to do anything they want to do. Unfortunately, I don't believe our country for the next 5 to 10 years is going to be the kind of country that allows children of today to choose and be whatever they want to be. I think our country has some growing up of its own to do before we really offer people equal access to opportunities. So for me, if I was my 11-year-old son, when I turned 15 or 16 years old and I start to really care about something, I would like to be in a place where I can explore that thing. I don't think that's going to be in the United States. I think that's going to be in Europe. I think that's going to be in the Middle East. I think that's going to be in Latin America, where he will have all the advantages of the world outside of the United States.
What do you think about what's going on at the moment with geopolitics as it relates to like China and the US? There's a bit of a power struggle going on, and there has been, but a lot of people forecast that China is eventually going to overtake, or maybe it already has, the US as the sort of global economic force. Are you preparing for that? Do you think it's going to happen?
I think that there's two realistic outcomes and there's one less realistic outcome. The most realistic outcome is that the United States and China continue to compete and reach parity, equality with each other. That's the most realistic outcome. Maybe the United States remains 10% bigger. Maybe China gets 2% bigger economically, but they approach parity. They approach equality. I don't want to live in the United States when it loses so much status that another country reaches economic parity. Think about that for a second. The world is accustomed to one superpower. Once there are two superpowers, everything changes. There's two massive languages, and you're going to have to choose which language you speak. There's two currencies. Which currency are you going to save your money in? There's competing priorities. There's competing politics. There's equally massive, sophisticated militaries. When you are in one of those two countries, at the moment that they reach parity, you are in the most dangerous position, because the number one target for China will be the United States. The number one target for the United States will be China. Right now, there's not parity, there's not equality. So the United States has to worry about everybody. And China doesn't really have to worry about many people at all. But as that equality gets closer and closer, there's more and more threat. Think about it in business terms. When you're the industry leader in your business,
Google,
you don't have to worry about much. You have to worry about all the little guys, but nobody's really a direct threat. But as soon as somebody else rises to meet you, you have to worry about it. The leader used to be Yahoo, right? Yahoo had to see what it's like to lose and gain parity with Google, only to then be eclipsed, right? So most probable outcome, we reach parity. Second most probable outcome is that China does supersede us by small amounts, right? 5% GDP, 10% GDP. And the United States has to regain its momentum to try to gain back the edge. So now you have this cycle back and forth, right? Where for 5 years, China is the leading GDP. For 5 years, the United States is the leading GDP. And you have this waffling back and forth, which makes you even less secure than if you were in direct parity. But that's a scary place to be as well. You still have to lose all the influence to get there. And when you're there, you never know how long it's going to last.
Do you think we're already engaged in a form of World War III?
Yeah, absolutely. I think World War III is already happening. I think World War III is not what people think it was going to be. I think people were afraid that World War III was somehow going to look like another World War II. Instead, World War III is a war of proxy nations.
I don't know about you, but that's some scary stuff, because, when he talks about, the parity between the United States and China, and the fear, it's a real fear that people have that one day U.S. will lose its position and dominance to China. And you can kind of see it. I think that that's what's a frightful thing for the elites. Those who have really, who are patriots of this country, who, they've really boasted about the United States being the superpower perhaps contributed to the demise of other countries. And now they're seeing that whole empire is falling apart. It is falling apart. And the idea that China is going to be it scares a lot of these people. To the part that they jump in ship. Many are even starting to build bunkers. They're building bunkers to go hide out because they forecast or they're seeing where society is headed. But like I said, if an ex-CIA operative says that he's trying to leave, he knows something. He knows something that the rest of us don't know. And for me, I tend to listen to people like that because these were people that are, when it comes to intelligence, gathering data, espionage, all of that, he's the type of person that was doing that. And so he knows something that's going on. And so prepare yourself, folks. Prepare yourself. I don't think it's a time for anyone to panic. I certainly, I'm not trying to panic anyone, but it is something to really be aware of. Prepare yourself, get your passports ready. If you don't have a passport, make sure you have a passport ready. Go and visit other places and have options. I'm a big traveler. I travel all the time. I go to different countries. I already have an alternative country that I'm going to go to, right? And so I already have an exit strategy for when that time comes. So make sure you are planning accordingly for you and your family. Get your passport, visit a couple of places. That way you know where is ideal for you and where would suit you. Because I'm telling you, the empire is falling. And many, I didn't think I would see this in my lifetime. I didn't think I would see the U.S. losing its dominance in my lifetime. Now, of course, the U.S. isn't crumbling tomorrow, and the U.S. isn't going to, it isn't going to be like Rome where everything is just going to be a catastrophe and fall apart in the next 24, 48 hours. That's not what we're talking about here. But there seems to be a sign that the empire is falling. And many who are in the know are jumping ship. The younger workforce don't want to be here. And so these two, it's a major problem. And so while we're all distracted by what's going on at the border and with the migrants, and maybe there's a reason why they're letting all the migrants in. Maybe the U.S. knows that it's losing a lot of people, especially key part of its citizens every year. And that's why they're trying to make it up with a new young workforce. Maybe that's why that is going on. I don't know. But I know that situation is upsetting a lot of people, especially when you see how the migrants are being treated and the benefits they're getting that a lot of citizens aren't getting. So that's already causing a lot of anger. So prepare yourself. Make sure you are thinking smart. Don't panic. Be logical. Do things that is in the best interest of your family. And maybe at the end of the day, this is all just a trend or a phase that the United States is going through, and it'll get through it and all is well, right? But it seems like that there's trouble in paradise. Anyhow, let me know what your thoughts are. Thank you all for watching. Please leave me a message. Like the video, share the content, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you all next time.
Det finns ingen annan där som kan stå här by my side, oh why. Sättet du rör på det får mig att dö för dig, baby. För de här yardis, de vill ju bara dra ner oss. Men du är fett och vanlig. På det jag lägger all min tid. Jag vill ha dig. Du får mig känna safety. Vi kan